So, oops, good afternoon. I'm just going to adjust the sound. Lower. So my name is Henriette van Eyl. I work for the European Commission. I work for DG Research in a unit that is called Economic and Social Transitions. So I'm really pleased to be here to co-moderate this session. Unfortunately, the colleague from DG Employment could not come, so I am replacing her. But we're going to have a really interesting 1 hour ahead of us. The session's title is Staying Healthy in a Fast-Moving World. And we're moving fast and we're feeling healthy. I hope you still feel healthy at the end of a long day. I felt very healthy when I cycled to this to the meeting room, and I got terribly wet. It was raining all over the place. So in this session, we're going to hear from two distinguished speakers about what are their views, what are their perspectives of staying healthy and fast-moving world. And then we are going to do and co-create this together. I would very much like to invite you to participate, to share, to care, to do this with us and see what are the research priorities. How can we create more impact on healthy, caring and longer lives in Europe? I'm okay? It's okay? I'm just looking at the technician. Yeah. So what we're going to do is, first I'm going to give you some housekeeping, and then I'm going to introduce you the speakers, and then we're going to open the floor. So the housekeeping part is that this session is going to be web streamed. If you want to follow this session incognito so that no one can see you, then you need to move to the back now. Okay, so people are still sitting. We've asked you a few questions by Slido about, like, have you already replied to the public consultation? Have you, what is for you the age where we need to start with building healthy lives? Is that already from the age of 0 to 1, or is it the age of adolescence, or do we need to start at age 19, or maybe at age 48, like me? This is being done by Slido. The code is R900. R900 on the app, and you can still participate. And our final question is, have you already participated in the public consultation? In the consultation where we, as Commission, invite your ideas about building this area, building this topic. So the consultation closes at the 4th of October. So my second honorable task is to introduce you to the free session speakers. I have with you an anthropologist, a sociologist, and a microbiologist. And they are called Brenda O'Brien from the European Agency for Safety, Health and Work, Antti Hantumati, who works for the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health, and then Stefan Schreck, from my colleague from DG Sante, will wrap up and will take all the notes home for you. So without further, so what I now need to do is to give you 2 minutes, in 2 minutes, the feedback of the consultation. So this is the session. How can we create more impact in Horizon Europe? What can we do better, smarter, more active, healthier? So this is a very important question. Secondly, this is also a question that is not only for researchers important, but also for our politicians. We are at the top of the policy agenda. Yeah? Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen mentioned in the appointment letter of the Health Commissioner that we need to invest in new technologies, health styles, new ways of living, working, and investing in technologies and in other types of solutions. So this is the session format. I will stop talking in 2 minutes. Then I will hand over to Brenda. She will hand over to Antti, who will start off the discussion after his intervention. And then we will finish with Stefan Schreck. So the public consultation is still open for another 3 weeks. Very much encourage you to bring in your ideas. Beatrice and the team and DG Research are looking at every single reply. So I really hope you join the 6,000 plus replies already. Not all in this area, but we need many more. What we see from the first analysis that compared to what we have written in the paper, there is already some good support. At the same time, there are 3 points that need further reflection. So your colleagues have already pointed out that 3 points may need to be strengthened. And again, this is something that we can discuss together a bit later in our session. So firstly, more should be done for the health and well-being of children and young people. It's about creating the foundations of healthy lives. So start earlier. Think about what kind of research innovation we need to have to start earlier. Secondly, the elderly should not only be seen as a burden, but as an asset and a resource. Yeah? Building on positive experiences and best practices for staying healthy. So health and wealth. And Antti will speak about this a little bit more, how the Finns are doing that and how you're cooperating between your ministries and your policies. So really interesting. And finally, turning evidence into action requires behavioral changes and science policy dialogues. So how can we stimulate, incentivize, discourage certain behaviors? Yeah? Good. So I'm now going to hand over to Antti, who would like to welcome you, to Brenda, sorry. I'm going to hand it over, and Brenda will talk from the agency. And we're going to see if this works.
Is it too far away?
Sorry.
Yeah, we're just looking at the technician. So while we are fixing the technology, I'm going to introduce you Brenda in a little bit more detail. So Brenda, you're working for the EU OSHA liaison office in Brussels. And basically, this agency works together with EU social partners, company stakeholders, about what and how you can look at new forms of work, improving working conditions. And you did this with loads of member states. You are a repository, a knowledge resource, and also basically a platform for policy exchange. I'm really, really pleased that you're here. And the slide is up.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to speak here today. The European Agency for Safety and Health at Work has its headquarters in Bilbao in the north of Spain. Just thought I'd tell you that in case you're ever there. You could pop in to see us. I'm the only member of staff not based in Bilbao. I'm based here in Brussels in the liaison office. And I'd like to talk to you very quickly because I was asked to throw out some ideas that we have learned from recent research. So the European Parliament decided a couple of years ago, in its wisdom, to ask the European Commission to do a pilot project. Why are people leaving work before retirement age? How can we stop that? As the demographic challenge advances and as the workforce is getting older, what can we do? What are the challenges to occupational safety and health if we are all now much older in the workplace? There were other questions like, should governments raise the retirement age? And if governments are raising the retirement age, doesn't that mean that we'll have even older workers in the workplace? And how do we keep them safe and healthy? And there were a lot of premises that we started with. And I wanted to tell you, first of all, some of the things that we found out. And I'd like to end up with telling you the things that we still don't know about, the things that we need more research into, the questions that we can't answer. So there is, without doubt, an increasing proportion of older workers in the workforce. which does mean exponentially an increasing proportion of workers with some sort of diseases. However, one of the main findings of our research, and if you leave today with only this idea in your head, I would be delighted, is age is not a good predictor of health. There are other reasons, and very individual reasons, why people are healthy or not. Age is a poor indicator. And one of the things we've also learned from our research is how we manage young workers influences how well or not they will age. We're all aging, whether you're new in a job at 19 or whether you're looking to go into retirement, whether you're in your 40s or your 50s, we're all aging. So, in fact, we don't find aging workers as a useful model at all in terms of managing workplaces and keeping people safe and healthy in workplaces. What a far more useful concept is the concept of work ability. And if you work with this notion of work ability, regardless of age, then you're on the right track. And then we know from the research we did in different member states, looking at different companies, looking at different countries, that the idea of work ability is a far more interesting indicator to use for people like us. A couple of things also that we should think about, because we have our stereotyped images of workers. Young people are more likely to be off work sick than older people. But older workers, when they are off sick, tend to be off work for longer. But the frequency of being off work sick is higher amongst young workers. Mm-hmm. So let's dispel some myths right from the beginning. And so one of the things that we found in our research that I specifically wanted you to think about today is we're not doing enough about getting people to return to work once they have had a longer illness or a chronic illness. And when people have cancer, and cancer doesn't, for example, just hit older people, as you know, it hits people at any age. What we need to keep doing as employers and as governments looking at policy here and as workers, focus on the work ability. Look at the capability of workers individually. Do a proper risk assessment to keep your workers healthy and safe. And as part of your managing safety and health in the workplace, make return to work policies embedded in your HR strategy. Early intervention is key. And we also have found that medical systems, health systems, and insurance systems need to have, as a clinical outcome, return to work for those people who are capable of returning to work. And please, just to be sure here, I'm not talking about bringing people who are too sick to work back into work. I'm talking about minor, small adjustments to workplaces that sometimes have massive impacts on people who've been ill and allow them to go back to work. Thank you. 5 minutes? Yeah. Four. Joined up policy intervention and budgets are needed. One of the things we found out, again, I'm picking and choosing out of the research findings that we came across, was that one of the biggest challenges facing all of us is sedentary work, musculoskeletal disorders. Musculoskeletal disorders are the single biggest reason in Europe why people are absent from work for longer than 3 days. Would anybody know what the second biggest reason is? What would be in second place? So musculoskeletal disorders in first place. Back pain, neck pain, upper limb, lower limb. What might be in second place across Europe now? Psychosocial risk, stress-related disease, burnout, depression, and all of the other ones that you can have that come from psychosocial risks in the workplace. So just here, I just wanted to show you that we're even thinking that we have now so much evidence that children are complaining of back and neck pain in schools because of the heaviness of their bags or the time spent on their devices, that they already are beginning MSDs. And so we need, if we're going to have healthier workplaces in the future, not only do we need to start with young workers, we need to start with children in schools. So my conclusion, just to get you, to tempt you today to think about a few things. Always take a life cycle approach to healthy workplaces. No good starting when your workers hit 50. Too late. Do proper risk assessments that are gender specific and reflect diversity. Take a holistic approach and be aware that micro and small enterprises need different types of help to large enterprises. Mm-hmm. What do we need? So I've just told you some of the things we know, some of the things we found. What do we need in the future? We need further research into practical methods for assessing work ability. We need improved knowledge on effective practices to support workers with chronic diseases and chronic conditions, allowing them to work. We need high-quality workplace interventions, and we need longitudinal research on the life cycle approach. Finally, we need solid measurement tools to identify variations in physical and mental work abilities with age, especially for highly demanding work. And we need appropriate answers for the different results that we get. We need more research on the impact of shift work during the life course. I cannot emphasize this enough. And if we're able to rotate people, move people in and out, get them to change their jobs according to the work ability model, we will have more people living and working longer and healthier lives at work and enjoying a longer and healthier retirement. And therefore, I would say one of the final things we need research to overcome some of the stereotypes that we have about older workers. And this is reflected in concrete things that happen older workers every day in the workplace, such as lack of access to proper training. Mm. So, you know, if you can figure that out, you're well on the road to having long and healthy lives in Europe's workplaces. Thank you.
Thank you. So Brenda, excellent. I already see that you have listed 9 research challenges, so a lot of food for thought. So I would like to ask you to hold your question just for a few minutes and see what Antti can add to that. Thank you. Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Antti Hautaniemi. I come from the Finnish Ministry for Social Affairs and Health. And I'm actually going to continue a little bit on the holistic approach and the life course perspective, but a different angle. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity to reflect on the Finnish EU presidency in this session. The main theme for our ministry during the presidency is the economy of well-being. Have you heard about the economy of well-being approach? I see some heads nodding. Good. What does it actually mean? The economy of well-being is a policy orientation.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bridging, Widening, Sharing, Let's Advance Europe Together session is about to begin in the Archimedes room. Please join us for that session in the Archimedes room.
Okay.
bridging, widening, sharing. Let's advance Europe together.
So please don't leave. Let's continue on this topic. Yeah. So the economy of well-being, it's a policy orientation which aims to put people and their well-being at the center of all policy and decision making. And why is this important? We think that economic growth and well-being are interdependent and mutually reinforcing. Inclusive growth improves people's well-being, and in turn, people's health, ability to function, and inclusion to the society will increase economic growth and stability. We know that people's physical and mental health and well-being can be influenced by their individual situations, as well as the broader societal context that they are living in. Income, education levels, social and gender aspects also have an impact on the health risks and how diseases can be prevented. It is all about these interlinkages when we talk about well-being. Economy well-being underlines the importance of cross-sectoral collaboration, for example, between the social, employment, health, education, and gender equality sectors, which actually strengthens the knowledge-based policy making and provides the synergies in order to maximize the positive long-term impacts of policy decisions. The economy well-being approach also contributes to the implementation of the United Nations Agenda 2030, which highlights the balance between the economic, social and environmental policies. The economy of well-being enhances the well-being of both people and the environment. It is actually a reminder to us all that promoting people's well-being is a central objective of the EU. It is a continuation of the European Pillar of Social Rights, and it supports its efficient implementation in the future. Finland proposes that the European Council adopts conclusions on the economy of well-being this October. During our presidency, we have also supported the approach of turning aging into an opportunity rather than seeing it as a burden. People living and staying healthy longer is actually the success story of a modern society. It shows that many illnesses and diseases have been conquered. This major success brings us several challenges, and therefore the policy models cannot stay the same. The response needs to be multi-generational and multi-sectorial, as highlighted at the high-level forum of the Silver Economy held in Helsinki in past July. Research and innovations are the key components for the well-being of people and sustainable solutions. Indeed, it is research and innovation which provide us evidence-based and concrete tools to turn aging into an opportunity and strength. This is a great example of a field where science, policy, dialogue plays an important role. In the spirit of this session, staying healthy in a fast-moving world, the economy well-being approach calls us to take a broader perspective and look at how investments today can generate well-being impact in the longer run. Impact, impact, impact. That's what we are here today discussing. Horizon Europe, with its duration for 7 years, can have a huge impact on the well-being of European citizens and how they can stay healthy in the long run. In this session, we are keen to hear your insights on what you think are the impacts to be achieved by the Horizon Europe supported research in the health cluster. Together with Henrietta, we would now invite your short opinions and interventions to this theme, and we have a few guiding questions for you. Please keep your interventions to quite short, 1 minute, max 2, so we can accommodate as many of them as possible. But without further introduction, I think we will move and get started with...
Yeah. So thank you, Antti.
You're welcome. Okay. So while we're waiting for the slide, I will give you the question from here. Which you think are the short-term achievable impacts to address demographic change and healthy lifestyles? It's a big, broad question, but it allows you to... give any.
Yeah. So if you just say your name and where you come from. Thank you. Oh wait, and I keep it for you. Yeah, come.
Thank
I
you.
hold
My
it.
name is Ursula Wawrik, New Ways Center for Sustainable Development. Yes, I think it's very important that from the early age onwards, actually, it already starts at the baby age. That means you have to train and educate mothers how to get used to eat and to have the lifestyle. Yes, so we see children at a very young age already overweight, and it's not their fault, it's the parents' fault. So I also think that in Austria, the education in the military service not to eat sugar or too much sugar is one example. So I think education is very important.
Excellent. Thank you, Ursula.
Good point.
We have agreed that in typical Eurovision Song Contest mode, Antti does left and I do right.
So our turn, please. Who wants to go? Live circle approach. There we go. 1 minute.
Thank you. So my name is Susanne Lokstrup. I'm from from the European Heart Network, which is a European Association of Heart Foundations, working to reduce the burden of cardiovascular diseases. I'd like to comment on what was just said. I think it's a little bit dangerous to say it's the parents' fault. I think we need to look at the wider societal drivers of chronic diseases and the risk factors of chronic diseases. Education is extremely important, but we do know that people may have find it difficult to choose the right kind of food because of the way it's marketed, price, access, and so on and so forth. Same thing about physical activity. It's not always really easy to do it. It depends on the city you live in and so on and so forth. So, of course, there is an amount of personal responsibility, but we do need to look at the environments that people actually live in, grow up in.
Yeah. So the context.
Yeah. Ursula, you're going to...
Can I just respond shortly? I was asked to only talk for a minute. I could talk for hours, but of course I agree with you. And the second issue would be that, of course, the healthy food, so biological food, but it's also a question about what is healthy for you. So it would be healthy to eat only the things that do not have any chemical or other negative things, poisons or what is it, the fertilizers, for instance. All this, even the creams, even the parfums, everything that is not natural is residing in your body and afterwards may become cancerous.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, you go.
Hello, my name is Donata Franzi from the University of Siena, Research Grant Office. Actually, I have a comment on first intervention. It was very, very interesting since my point of view. And I was wondering if there was a call in the Horizon 2020 program called Mental Health at Work. I mean, it could be interesting also starting from the outcomes of the project funded under this call to see how can we simply improve these outcomes and start from something that we already have funded and realized in order to have something better. In addition to this point of discussion, since my point of view, demographic change should also consider the impact that the migratory policy may have. So it could be actually interesting to have, let's say, an overall approach. Migration, demographic changes, and people getting old in Europe. So how can we deal with this? And there's also, since this point of view, another key point is also looking at the policy, migratory policy actually, in cooperation with countries where migrants come from.
Antti, may I ask you a question? You talked about policy mix. Do you in Finland also include migration policy in your well-being?
I think it's more and more coming stronger through. Yeah, we are recognizing the interlinkages between different policy sectors related to migration.
Yeah.
More and more.
Anyone else? Your side is doing better, Antti. Mine is working.
Okay. Yngve Sommervold from NTNU, Norwegian University of Science and Technology. I think there's a balance between doing structural interventions and empowering individuals. So on a policy level, we're talking about structural, larger, huge things that are multi-sectorial, multi-generational. Perhaps we sometimes see another ban like the tobacco ban, as was introduced in Norway for many years since. So reducing the number of smokers in a society by huge numbers. But on an individual level, we have to empower people knowing to make the right decisions and make sure that they are educated enough to take those right choices. Thank you.
Excellent point. Anything to add to that?
Maybe Brenda, what have you picked up from the first round of comments?
Yeah, certainly we found in the research we did over 3 years in Bilbao, all over Europe, that the demand for joined-up thinking from different policy areas was huge when looking at the demographic challenge. And remember that we are really looking at it from the point of view of the workplace or where people work, whether it's in an office or outside or at home. So the pillarization or the silo thinking, where you have a department of pensions, a ministry for labour, a ministry for health, a ministry for education, who don't necessarily see the need for joined-up thinking, was for us something that was repeatedly found in the research that we did among the member states, and it's also mentioned in the slides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Stefan. Yeah.
Yes, maybe just an intervention from the perspective of Jesus Santé, because I found it interesting, this reference to using the mental health calls in Horizon 2020 as a starting point for what could be done in the future. Actually, we are doing just that. We are looking at the mental health calls under earlier framework programs and try to identify implementable research results which member states might want actually to use in real life. We have made a selection, we have proposed this selection to ministries of health in member states, and we will support financially the application of research results which were achieved under the framework program in real life in member states. So this is something which is actually done just now as we speak.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. And if further comes, what I also saw in one of the comments was about the role of technology. What kind of role, what kind of technology, what kind of roles can technology play in aging healthily, in working longer, and in behavior change, in catalyzing behavior change? Would anyone like to comment on the role of technology? For example, do you all have an app, one of these tracking apps, and where do you see this going? Any? The role of technology in this?
Who has the bracelet or the ring? Wellbeing. Oh, okay. Okay. So,
Yeah.
does it work? Does it work for you?
Yes, of course. I think technology is very important. I think I was at an interview for a job about 10 years ago, and I said they have to develop apps. And now the apps are all over the world. So I think these apps are extremely important, be it for the runners, be it for people who have other problems, heart problems, for instance. So technology can be extremely helpful there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a comment here.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's on user data. If we want to make real use of all the data that are available, there should be transferable and hosting rules for being able to use those data in a larger context. Social data, health data, environmental data is going to predict in a larger extent than we've been able to before with the use of AI on how to make policies that could really make an impact on people's health. So making sure that there's some regulations making this happen is vital.
Yeah, you need enabling legislation for the responsible use of that data.
And do you see that, sir, as now data driving some new research questions, or do you see the other way around, that we've been struggling to address research questions, and now finally we have some data, or we can work together with other organizations, not because we like them so much, but because they have data that we would like to use? Naughty question. Oh, wait. Oh, you need to have Anti's microphone. That is the one.
It's okay, yeah.
Okay.
It's two ways. You see that the new ways of making data available and hosting data in different manners, that making accessible data is you can make better use of them now, of course. But also you see this interdisciplinarity increasing, that you want to have a look at how things are impacting health. For example, environmental data on how the climate is changing, how we are nurturing our earth and soil. All those things could now be combined, and then there are new questions arising, of course.
Excellent.
Yeah, we have one more here.
Thank you. I'm Suvi Ryynänen from the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, Finland. And my point is not in fact to that question, but more on less on the policy coherence, as was spoken here. Also, what we speak of food policy, so that you should look also the nutrition and well-being of human beings, and also the environment. I was just in a conference where one person from Stockholm Resilience Center, she presented the Eat Lancet article of that what we should eat, which is healthy for us and healthy for environment, and what we are producing now. And that is a quite big difference. We should change what we are producing to more healthy way, and that is also more environmental friendly way. And how to do that also.
So recognizing the co-benefits of different policies. Very important.
Excellent, sir.
Just have a question from this side.
Yeah.
Kieran Tui from Fondazione Mac in Italy. I think it's emerging that there's a consensus that we need to bring the biology and the social science together and have a much more holistic view in this, but also to debunk some myths. There's a lot of myths around elderly workers, about nutrition, about what are healthy foods, what are sustainable production systems. We need to get to the facts of a lot of these things, because they're driving consumers to make choices, but the consumers don't have the knowledge to make the choices. You need a PhD to understand what's in most foods. And maybe 90% of the foods in the supermarket contain the same ingredients, just the packaging is different. So it's really difficult and probably unfair to blame the consumer for obesity and for choices that they're not equipped to make.
And can I then ask you a question back? How would you translate that into research questions or in research challenges?
Well, I think in the last call, a lot of the biology calls had a requirement for social science input. And maybe we could turn the table a little bit in this future call, and a lot of social science could also bring biology in. You mentioned shift working. The gut microbiome plays a huge role in disease risk in those situations. So bringing biology into some of the social science challenges would also be a strategy way forward.
Excellent. Already one more challenge. More ideas, more challenges. Sorry, yeah, sure.
I actually have a question for you, maybe, because you talked about another indicator for age and how you can work, and age is not a good indicator, but we should look at more biological markers, maybe. So how do you see that is reflected in healthy lifestyle choices, and because it's also an individual doing individual stuff that may not be very healthy. So how do you see that in relation to the workplace and the, well, who is responsible actually?
Yeah, I really like the question, who's responsible? When it comes to Europe's workplaces, there is a European directive which is transposed into all the member states, a framework directive. And the responsibility of the health and safety of workers in Europe's workplaces, regardless of size, is the employer. And this has been tested again and again, and I would also like to add that's something we haven't maybe considered a lot in the past, but boy, are we considering it now. The employers are also responsible for mental health in the workplace, as well as physical and exposure to, for example, dangerous substances. There is an obligation on every employer in Europe to carry out a risk assessment. And a risk assessment must be done taking into account the diversity of the workforce in front of it. So workability as an indicator, it isn't that age is not any good, it's exaggerated. And I think we need to look collectively at making places where people work. There should be a greater culture of those places being healthy. And those things like healthy eating, gym membership being offered to workers, all of that are all well and good, and we salute them. But there is also a legal obligation on all employers to make sure that workers go home from work every evening safely and in a relatively good, in good shape.
Mm-hmm. And adding that to that, Brenda, you also mentioned as an indicator, as a clinical outcome. An indicator for clinical outcome would be going back to work. And how do you see that evolve?
Well,
because the gentleman here was saying about we need to combine the biologists with the sociologists, which we are doing in this room already.
Yeah. Several countries, and I don't know if you're going to distribute those slides, but I've given you the link to that research we've done. And there are examples of several countries that have done this, that have, if you like, supported from a governmental point of view, return to work policies. And by helping companies to look at it, they have reduced the expense and cost, not only to the person or people concerned, but to the companies, and ultimately to the exchequer, to the health service, and to the taxpayer, if you like, because we have very detailed results now, data, to show that originally when somebody gets sick at work, the immediate expense falls on the company, but very quickly that expense moves onto society as a whole. And therefore that's why it's quite interesting for governments also to look at this, and it's something that we really strongly promote. Getting people back to work. And I'm not talking about getting people who are unable to work back to work. Two people mentioned the mental health issue. There is a lot of evidence to suggest that people who suffer from depression and who have been unable to work due to depression often cite the day that they go back to work as a good day, that work was and could be a force for the good, that it's a milestone in their journey back to recovery. That is, unless the workplace is toxic and the source of the depression. And that's a different kettle of fish, that's a different scenario. But people who have depression have often cited in research we've looked at that first day you get back to work, maybe it's part-time, or maybe it's doing a job with a little bit of support with people around, where there's been a small adaptation, that this has been a glorious if you like, add-on to the recovery path of the people concerned.
Excellent. So, anyone would like to add to that? Yeah, I see. Oh, it's my turn. Yes, come.
Hello, Sophie Martin, Orange, France, ex-France Telecom. It was more about light pollution, noise pollution, screen pollution, because some people just sleep in their screen.
Yeah.
So about sleep also, and light. I mean, the sky of Europe now is orange. It's not. It has nothing to do with the stars and this. And we know. I think scientists showed that it affects all our health. You know, the noise and the light and the screens.
Yeah.
So what I sense from you is you are interested in teasing out the exact impact. So what would be your research question about it?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to announce that the Horizon Prize for Social Innovation will be awarded in Room Archimedes at 6:30 p.m. We warmly invite you to attend the ceremony.
Good to know.
Good to know. Ursula.
Maybe the research question could be that how each technology, new technology, is affecting health. So, for instance, I have been told that the windmills are also kind of emitting some waves that are not very good for the health. Okay. And it's also said that the masts for the internet are, at least some people are sensitive that they are getting really problems on the whole body. So this could be a research question. And I also wanted to say, with respect to the workplace, one measure could be the 360-degree assessment
evaluation
of a person, so at least of the managers, because very often if the manager is a good manager, he also has a healthy environment and a nice team.
Let's try he or she. Auntie, I have many more questions, but maybe do you have any more? Do you have questions?
Well, I think it was important that you brought up the connection between the environment and the built environment and health. Is there something in that area that you further would? Because I think it's coming up now quite strongly that the impacts of climate change and we need to look more closely to the interaction of environment and human health. Does that raise any new questions, research questions that should be addressed?
Your side.
Absolutely, and along with that, also urban planning in the sense of making cities more open to activities and open spaces and a built environment that enhances health rather than depresses it. So together with climate changes and also the planning of open spaces to activities.
There's a social angle to that as well.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. I'm Lydia from DLR Project Management Agency in Germany. I just wanted to add that I think the responsibility of the society, so raising the awareness of mental illness of colleagues, for example, is very important. Yeah. It's not only the research on the illness itself, but I think it's important to make society aware of what to look out for in a colleague and to realize what behavior might be showing first signs of some sickness or something like that. So raising awareness in society, I think, is really important and should be an emphasis put on, actually.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah.
I'd like to address your question, actually. Actually, I have two research questions, maybe, because one is the environment, the effect on the humans, and I think there's not enough focus on the gender differences there, because there are gender differences, we know that, especially for therapeutics, for drugs. But we don't know really a lot about the effect of chemicals in the environment and the differences between men and women. So I think that's an important one. But also the other way around. I mean, we are getting older, but we're also using more medicines and drugs, and they end up in the environment. So that's actually a risk of getting older, because we're getting more sick and we're releasing much more chemicals in the environment. So it goes both ways, I guess.
Good point.
I was just wondering if, considering climate and also problems related to well-being at work, I mean, do we still need a workplace? I mean, I know.
What do you think?
Maybe yes. It's important to live with the other people and colleagues, of course. But do you think that we really need a workplace? I mean, we can also work on the web, staying at home, or in a park. I don't know.
You said, what, sir?
Just got a comment that probably builds on that. We think of technology as improving our working lives, but technology obviously is also taking over our jobs and reducing the workforce that's required. So we need continuous training at different ages, not just young people, but also old people or elderly. So it's another challenge.
Yeah, excellent. So what I would like to do now, because I'm mindful of time, is to give Brenda the floor to wrap up her point of view. I'd like to give Brenda the floor to give her point of view. And then I would like to invite Stefan to wrap up and to conclude and to summarize what we have heard. But before that, does anyone have an urgent point that you'd like to make? And I see your hand is up. Excellent.
Thank you. I was thinking of the built environment, that we have now spoken quite much of risks, but what about the possibilities? Because I think that we are speaking, at least in Finland, quite much of the possibilities of nature. For example, forests, how the blood pressure goes down when you are going to forests, and you are quite far from quite soil microbes and so on. So it's too sterile the environment. So you should have also the nature more near people.
Excellent.
That affects also health.
Excellent. So plea for dirt and mud. Excellent. So Brenda, I hand over to you for your short statement, and then Stefan.
Yeah, maybe I'd just like to wrap up by saying we are embarking, or we have embarked upon, a rather big project now, looking at the effects of digitalization on workers in Europe and on their health and safety. With the decline of the traditional employer-employee relationship, sometimes out the window goes opportunities to train, opportunities to learn. But all is not lost, and we have plenty of examples of in these new working environments, which we no longer call workplaces, where we can also hopefully have long and healthy working lives. And key to that is the ability for us to be able to assess the risks. And remember, the traditional work environment involving a workplace is still by far the most prevalent. The other one is growing, but the traditional working environment is still far more prevalent. And therefore, in there, think about these things in the future, assess the risks. And there are two magic ingredients to doing a proper assessment of the risks in any workplace, whether it's in the European Commission or whether it's in the shop across the road selling coffee. Two magic ingredients: management engagement and worker involvement. And when you put those two together, you get a proper assessment of the risks. And the last point I would make is really where we found it is we need to stop the stereotyping of older workers. In these statements that are being made about them and actions that are being used, we have a very worrying statistic that we came up, a very worrying result, in that older workers have far less access to training than younger workers. And we really need to address that. And I would say that is a very important research question to be looked at in, say, the work of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. So I hand over to Stefan. Would like to invite you to come over. This is your microphone.
Yes, thank you very much, Henriette. What an interesting discussion. So it is a real challenge. Actually, I will just pick some of the points I picked up. There were others as well. Maybe there's a possibility also to mention them afterwards, to put them in a report. The first thing I would like to refer to is the return to work as clinical indicator. I think that is very interesting and poses also interesting research questions, because when we talk about traditional research projects, we talk about biomarkers or something like that. Whereas at the same time, we can see that in cancer, for example, we have more and more survivors, and we have maybe cured them, medically speaking, but their life is still in ruins because they can't find a job and so on. And the question is how that can be integrated into research projects, which normally look only at the biology and not at the social life of people. Then I would like to refer to this question of data, because we have more and more data, and I think it's a real challenge in both ways. The question is, what are the right questions to pose to make the best use of the data? And then, of course, how best to use the data which we have in order to answer those questions. And that's a completely new challenge which also needs to be addressed. So good luck, my dear colleagues in DG RTV, to find a solution for that. And then another thought I would also like to mention is that what we eat should be healthy for us, but also good for the environment. And that is indeed a very important link, which in the Commission between DG Santé, DG Environment and DG RTD and the JRC we should really address in the future. And I think that could also be a part of the new Green Deal. So I will leave it here. I know there were lots of other interesting interventions, but I have to say I'm really positive about the interesting ideas we heard here today. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Stefan. So it is time to say goodbye. What we're going to do is we have two people who've been drafting and writing and collecting all your ideas standing in the back. We're going to bring those into the report of this event. You're still very much welcome to add and to comment on the public consultation. Closes on the 4th of October. And by that, I would like to thank you for all your comments, your ideas, your suggestions. And I would like to thank the panelists, Brenda, Antti, and Stefan, for their inputs and their wisdom. And I would like to thank the people, my colleagues in the back, Beatrice, Violetta, and Carina, for all the support and for organizing this session. Thank you very much, and safe journey home.